Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Dark Powerrr, where we cover everything that happens on AEW Dark, MLW Fusion, and now, for the first time, Dark Elevation. We will be adding back NWA Power starting next week. Join me for the pay-per-view talk for Back for the Attack, the NWA pay-per-view that's going to be happening on Sunday, March 21st, and then on the 23rd, we will be back with having NWA Power on Dark Powerrr. So a lot of things to talk about, both this week and for next week. But we got to start off this week, and before we can do that, I got to remind you guys, hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to go just kind of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll start with Dark Elevation, we'll hit up Dark, and then we'll hit up MLW Fusion. So a lot of good things about this episode of Dark. One of the things that I really liked was that opening match. I thought it actually was the match of the night. I saw other people voted for the main event. For me, I kind of give the nod over to the opening match, which is Jungle Boy taking on Danny Limelight. Two really good talents. We know what Jungle Boy can do. We've started to learn a lot more about Danny Limelight during his time on Dark, and seeing him now on Elevation, just taking that to a next level. That's what Elevation is all about. Taking some of the matches, some of the competitors that we've seen on Dark, and elevating them, as the saying goes, right? So really good match to start us off with that. I liked the Kip Sabian Miro versus Baron Blackberry Morales that happened after this. Probably the reason why I liked it is because it's continuing that storyline of tension going on between Sabian and Miro involving Penelope. I want to see where that goes. After this, we had Big Swole taking on Skylar Moore. Also a good match. Good to see Big Swole back in action. We saw that she had some problems with some complications with her Crohn's disease. Good to see that she's able to put some of those things behind her and move forward. Another match that stood out to me that I liked. Well, actually, we'll talk about the main event, and then I'll go back and talk about the kind of within an episode storyline that's going to have ramifications for down the road. So, our main event was Riho taking on Maki Itoh. Maki Itoh's final match for now in AEW, and good match. Really strong work, incredible work from all participants, both participants. I don't know why I was saying all. There was only two, but I guess all works. It's more than one. But this was a nice standout match. I liked it a lot. I think it just lacked that second or third gear to shift into versus what Jungle Boy and Danny Limelight did, and that's why I give the edge to Jungle Boy and Danny Limelight. But this match, really well done. You can tell when people know each other well in the ring and have worked together before, even if we're seeing it for the first time, they are good, solid hands in the ring, and they know each other very well. I don't know if they've had singles matches before or tag matches, but it just has that feel, right? It has that feel that they know each other very, very well. So if we're backing up now, one of the things about Dark Elevation, or the progression of what Dark Elevation is supposed to be about, is that it's going to have matches that have, or storylines or elements that have more ramifications for Dynamite. And we started with that immediately. The Sydal brothers win a tag match. They're backstage talking about their win when Kenny comes up with Nakazawa and, talks about how Sydal is a pretty good guy. And Sydal says, yeah, I'm going to be climbing those ranks, and I'm going to try to come after you and your world title. And, of course, Kenny takes exception to this. Kenny does not agree with this sentiment whatsoever. And Kenny's argument is, well, you gotta beat the top five. And Sydal's thinking that he's referring to the rankings on AEW. And, of course, Kenny is not. Kenny calls the rankings a bunch of malarkey, to quote our new president. But he says that if you can beat the people in Kenny's top five, Kenny's rankings, then yeah, you can get a title shot. And this is a situation where he's got to beat Nakazawa, because Nakazawa is 5th place, 4th place, 3rd place, 2nd place, first place. So that match is supposed to happen, and if Sydal can beat Nakazawa, then he'll get a shot at Kenny. Not for the title, but just a shot against Kenny. And should he win that, then he gets another match against Kenny, but this time for the title. So, he has the match against Nakazawa. As you can imagine, he wins. Some good, nice little callbacks, or at least references from commentary on the history between Nakazawa and Sydal. Kenny comes out immediately and says that the match that Sydal has to have against him to see whether he can get a title match is going to happen right now. And then he hits a one-winged angel and pins him. Now, it's interesting because the bell doesn't ring, so I guess technically the match isn't really starting, but the ref counted it, so I guess it works. Then we have something interesting happening. Tony Khan comes out, which we haven't really seen Tony be a on-screen presence. And Tony reprimands Kenny for what he did and said, you got to be fair. This is you're saying that he's got to beat you, but this is the third match he's going to have this evening. So he is making a match in 9 days on Dynamite against Kenny, Sydal, Omega, and should Sydal win, he gets a shot for the world title. So we're seeing impacts or influences from Dark Elevation onto Dynamite, and that was the intended goal. That's what they're trying to have happen. So now we can turn towards Dark, but right before I do that, I do want to add one thing. I liked the overall promos that they had. They did have some interstitial promos with different people, and I liked the commentary. Commentary did a really good job. Big Show, or Paul White, as he is now known, really good on commentary, as well as Tony Schiavone. They played well off of each other. I will say that some of the, and I guess this is more nitpicks, or not maybe nitpicks, one of the things that I think Paul White is going to grow out of or learn how to deal with better is, for example, during the Big Swole match, Swole is selling a knee injury. But he says that she's selling a knee injury, right? It's the little thing, like little terminology things. Like in his mind, he's seeing Swole selling the injury, so he says that. But on commentary, you can't really say that because selling doesn't make sense. If we take ourselves out of in universe, we know that they know that we know what's going on. Selling makes zero sense. He's supposed to say she's hurt, that her knee is hurt. So those little things like that, I think he will slowly get out of. But his ability to make observational points is really, really good, and his knowledge of moves and movesets also incredibly well. So for his first job or first time out, very well done. Turning to AEW Dark itself. So there wasn't that much from Dark that stood out to me. And I think that's more because they wanted to make sure that they concentrated on Elevation, which is fine. I get it. On Dark Elevation the night before, after, I think it was the Jungle Boy Danny Limelight match. I want to say, yeah, it was after that. They had the Pretty Peter Avalon, Banani, and Nick Nemeth, attack Marco Stunt. And so we start off Dark with Luchasaurus versus Banani. So we're seeing already these continuations of things that happen on Dark Elevation impacting Dark, impacting Dynamite. That's what we wanted. One of the other things that stood out to me was just realistically the main event. The main event and the match before it. We had Team Taz defeating Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss. This was a really good tag match. I liked it a lot. They had some nice plays between Cage and Starks. They're not 100% on the same page after the loss to Sting and Darby. The tag match at Revolution makes sense. So that aspect I liked. I liked the storyline progression. Want to see where they go with that. And the main event was 10 defeating Jack Evans. Really good match. Strong match. As always, we've got -1 on commentary. The MVP is back. The Dark MVP. Not just the MVP of the Dark Order, but the MVP of Dark itself. Just of anything Dark, it is -1 with amazing commentary. But good match, though, and 10 took a really stiff shot from Jack Evans. He was leaking blood from the mouth at the end of the episode, but he picked up the win, and that's ultimately what's important. So finally, we turn to MLW Fusion. Fusion was pretty good episode. Not the worst episode. I mean, we still had Los Parks in the main event, and they won, but not that bad of an episode. So the episode itself starts with Injustice and Contra Unit. They are brawling backstage outside, and Los Parks show up. Because of this, we will have our main event, which was supposed to be Los Parks defending the tag titles in a regular tag match, turn into a triple threat with Los Parks defending against Injustice and Contra Unit. We also find out that the person who signed that contract to face Lio Rush for the middleweight title is none other than Brian Pillman Jr. Now, I thought this was done a little not as well as it could have been. Yes, I get it that champions should come out first, and champions do come out first, but the point of the match was the mystery of the opponent. So having Brian Pillman come out immediately, as well as having then just cutting to like a backstage promo by Lio Rush earlier in the day, it didn't really work as well to kind of have that mystique or mystery of who is going to be Lio Rush's opponent. I would have had Rush come out, maybe cut the promo, not necessarily about Pillman, but cut the promo about the mystery person right then and there, and then had Pillman's music play and Pillman come out. So just a weird kind of sequence, because the goal was to say, who's it going to be? Who had the audacity or the balls or the courage or whatever you want to call it to take that open contract that Lio Rush had put up there against the wall of that locker room and have the balls to take on Rush? It's Pillman Jr. Let's milk that a little bit more. Rush puts away Pillman Jr. in about 9 minutes, 16 seconds. Good match of the night for Fusion, because the next two matches are not that great. But good match overall. I liked it, and it continues that momentum for Rush, and I gotta think that Pillman's done. I mean, I know we said this the last time Pillman was on MLW, but I don't think he's won a match since I started covering Fusion. After this, we have a good promo from Hammerstone about how Mil Muertes may have the National Openweight Championship, but he is not the National Openweight Champion. Good. I like the continuing to build that between Hammerstone and Mil Muertes. Again, it makes me wonder, how is Hammerstone a face when Holiday's a heel? What does that make Dynasty itself? We're supposed to get a match between Bukudao and TJP after Bukudao challenges TJP, but we're going to find out that Bukudao has been attacked backstage, left laying, and all fingers point to TJP, who will be suspended. I don't know if this is because TJP had other obligations with Impact. I mean, he's signed to Impact, not to MLW. I don't know if it's whatever the exact reason is. But as storylines go, it's a smart way to keep the momentum going until the next time that TJP can be back in MLW. Because you can keep Bukudao off of TV for however long you need to until TJP's back. So overall, well done, and it also gives the sense of the show supposed to be longer. Like we've talked about this on Review of Honor with the 3-time baby-making champ Ness, where sometimes Ring of Honor will talk about how there's supposed to be another match, but then something happens backstage, we don't get the match. It makes the show feel more full, if that makes sense. It almost makes us feel as though, it's a good thing that Los Parks, that title match is now being turned into a triple threat, because this way we have more time. We have more time to let them do whatever it is that they're going to do as they fight. We find out that Bukudao has been taken out by TJP during the Mil Muertes versus Powerrr match. Now, this is a quick match. It's under 5 minutes long, but it gets the job done. Powerrr's really only brought in to help get Mil Muertes over. You have somebody the size of Powerrr, the strength of Powerrr. Mil Muertes puts this person down with ease. You think Mil Muertes is that much more of an imposing figure. Job well done on everybody's part. Which leads us to some promos between the Von Erichs and Tom Lawlor. The Von Erichs say they're challenging Lawlor to a match, any match that he wants, any number of people that he wants, whatever the case may be. Lawlor will later answer and say, okay, cool, then it's going to be a 3-on-3 6-man tag match with chain ropes. So I'm assuming here that the regular ropes will be removed, chains will be put there in place, and it'll hurt a lot more when you have to bounce off the ropes. And I guess I would assume that it's more difficult to use springboard attacks or aerial attacks because it's chains. Now, granted, ropes in wrestling, the ring ropes are actually metal cables with things wrapped around them, but there is less give when it's an actual metal chain. So we'll see how exactly that plays out. Not that anybody in the match, Kevin Koo, Guarini, Lawlor, the Von Erichs, ACH, none of them are really high flyers in that traditional sense. But I mean, ACH can use high-risk moves, and so can the Von Erichs. So maybe it will play into the match. We'll see how that goes. That, I think, is going to be, they said, next week. And finally, let's talk about this main event. So this was kind of a clusterfuck of a main event. You guys know I'm not a big fan of Los Parks. I'm not the biggest Los Parks fan. It's just LA Park, really. Just the level of confusion and chicanery that has to happen to cover the fact that he can't move just takes me out of the match, because you have people like Byron Reed, like Jordan Oliver, who are able to move so quickly. You have somebody like Daivari and Simon Gotch, who we know can hit very hard. This guy doesn't look like he can take those hits anymore. But I mean, it almost seems like another week, another LA Park conversation that we're having, and I don't want to be talking about the same things over and over again. So let's just talk about other aspects of the match, which was that for a triple threat that is supposed to have these kinds of shenanigans, it was booked pretty well. It wasn't booked as well as it could have been, but it was booked pretty well. And at first you had to think. So the other thing was that Contra Unit and Injustice are idiots, because it's a triple threat tag team match, which means there are no rules. Like, there's no disqualifications, no countouts, none of that stuff. This is a match, or stipulations, that fit right into the wheelhouse of Los Parks. Now, this is, again, going back to what they need to do to cover what this man can't do. But anyway, you know that they're going to have chairs, you know they're going to have things they shouldn't be having, you know that they're going to have people under the ring. You can bring a chair, you can bring a kendo stick, you can use a table. All of those things are at play for you to use. Now, I understand why Contra Unit maybe would not want to. And that's simply because not only are they heels, but they are powerhouse heels. So they're like, we don't need it. We can beat you straight up. We can put you down, we can beat you down into submission. Even though Contra Unit cheats in their own way. But for Injustice, bring the damn chair. Bring the kendo stick. You've already done things where you've jumped Contra Unit in the past because they're assholes. Why not even the odds? Why not keep things in your favor? Why not come into an advantage when you know that one of the other teams is going to be breaking these rules and using these rules to their advantage? So I don't know. That part of it seemed a little weird from the perspective of they're basically telling me that Injustice are morons, I guess. But overall, decent episode of MLW Fusion. Kept things moving that needed to move. Treaded water where it needed to tread water. Built up the Never Say Never pay-per-view, which, I mean, not really pay-per-view, like special episode on YouTube for the Fatu Tankman match. There was a good promo video for that. So, not the worst. Not the worst thing in the world. Not the best thing in the world, but not the worst thing in the world. I've seen worse, seen better from MLW Fusion. But when we see next on MLW Fusion, That's what we'll be talking about next week when we have MLW Fusion, AEW Dark, Dark Elevation, and NWA Power. It's going to be a super stacked episode of Dark Powerrr going forward. I'm looking forward to it. I hope you guys are. Thank you once again for tuning in. You can catch me also on Review of Honor with the 3-time baby-making champ Ness. He forms one half of the Pot Heels when he's not hanging out with me and being, I guess, straight-laced, a little more straight-laced. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other,